We're looking at nonverbal communication in interpersonal relationships, Chapter 6. So far, we've looked at a definition of nonverbal communication, the characteristics of nonverbal communication, and now we're going to look at functions of nonverbal communication. One of the primary functions is to create and maintain relationships. Think about how important it is, especially at the very beginning of a relationship. When we first meet someone, our goal is to reduce uncertainty about them. We ask ourselves, would I like to know this person better? Are they interested in me? And one of the first ways we answer these questions is by observing the nonverbal cues. Are they smiling? Are their eyes focused on me? So we look at their facial expressions, their eye contact, their posture, their gesture, the tone of voice. At the same time, while we are sizing others up, we are providing nonverbal cues about our attitude toward them. We rarely share these verbally because it's too threatening at this point. So it might be that your nonverbal cues are saying, I'm friendly, I'm relaxed. Messages like these about interest in someone else are much more safely expressed via nonverbal cues. But remember, nonverbal cues are ambiguous and that you're prone to misinterpret them. So you might want to do some perception checking to ensure that your interpretation of the nonverbal cue is accurate. Nonverbal cues are also important in established ongoing relationships. They both help create and signal the emotional climate in that relationship. So think of some nonverbal cues displaying affection, sitting close, holding hands, winking and gazing. These are all strongly connected to commitment and satisfaction in romantic relationships. In families, nonverbal cues offer a clear sign of relational satisfaction. On-the-job supervisors who offer nonverbal cues of liking can increase their subordinates' job motivation, job satisfaction, and liking for their boss. So you can test the power of nonverbal behavior in relationships by observing the interaction of people in relationships without, paying attention to their words. Second function of nonverbal communication is regulating interaction. Nonverbal regulators are cues that control behavior or verbal interaction between two people. There are a wide array of turn-taking signals that let the other person know, I'm done, it's your turn to speak. So that might be a change in vocal intonation, a rising or falling in pitch at the end of a clause, a drawl in the last syllable, a drop in vocal pitch or loudness in using the phrase you know. Eye contact is another way of regulating verbal communication. In conversations, the person listening typically looks more at the speaker than the reverse. When the speaker seeks a response, he or she signals by looking at the listener, creating a brief period of mutual gazing called a gaze window. Another function of nonverbal communication is influencing others. How we look, act, and sound can be more important in meeting our goals than the words we speak. So the influence of nonverbal behavior comes in many forms. It can capture attention, show or increase liking, generate power, and boost credibility. So, people are more willing to do our bidding here in the US when we look them directly in the face, when we wear high-status clothing, use open body gestures, touch them appropriately, and behave in a friendly, upbeat way. So we use nonverbal to influence others. We use nonverbal communication to influence ourselves. Nonverbal behavior reflects how a person feels. So if you're happy, you smile. If you're interested in someone, you make eye contact. If you're depressed, you slump. But a recent line of research shows that the opposite may be true. That is, if you change your nonverbal behavior, it can affect your mood. It can affect the way you feel. In essence, your body language now influences your emotions. So, adopting expansive poses as hands on hips or spreading out your arms can increase your sense of power positions. Jumping for joy can trigger happiness. Sitting up straight can improve your mood and self-esteem and even your memory. And smiling for a selfie once a day can improve your mood over time. There's some practical applications, and one of them is, especially if you're going for a job interview, you can boost your confidence and create a more forceful presence by discreetly holding a power pose for a minute or two. Another function of nonverbal communication is concealing or deceiving. Of course, we value truth, but many of the messages we exchange are not completely truthful. So sometimes we keep silent. Sometimes we hedge, as we spoke earlier in the last chapter, and sometimes we downright lie. So you might lie to save your own face and avoid embarrassment. Nonverbal factors can make these face-saving deception either succeed or fail. You see, when your verbal and your nonverbal messages conflict, we tend to believe the nonverbal. And you can look at what research says in Deception Detection 101 in trying to detect deception, that we only slightly more than right half the time. We overestimate our abilities to detect others' lies. We have a strong tendency to judge others' messages as truthful. So it's not so easy to determine whether someone is lying as we sometimes think. Liars often sustain more eye contact. They fidget less, in part because they want the other person to believe that they are telling the truth. All right. And then managing impressions. One major goal of communication is impression management. Getting others to view us as we want to be seen. And nonverbal cues can be more important than verbal cues in creating these impressions. So there are several ways of managing impressions non-verbally. Manner refers to the way we act, how we stand, how we move, the way we control our facial expressions, the adjustments we make in our voice. Appearance involves the way we dress, the jewelry or artifacts that we wear, our makeup, our hair, the scents we emit. And setting involves the physical items we surround ourselves with, those personal belongings, the vehicles, the place we live. Small differences in setting can certainly influence attraction. In the next segment, we will look at types of nonverbal communication.